Hello, everybody. We're back with another episode. I personally am very excited about this one and nervous, but I'm always about that. So, this episode is inspired by and structured around an episode on typology produced by Anthony Skinner and hosted by Ian Cron. I'll go more into detail about that, but let me introduce our podcast. We are a podcast that covers a variety of topics from faith, enneagram, being a third culture kid, navigating adulting, and a lot of brain dumps. Before we get into the meat of the episode, hi, my name is Yehna.
Hi, I'm Jessie, and welcome to another episode of
At the Table. Woohoo! Round 2 of recording next to each other, which has been definitely weird, but very, very, very fun.
We figured it out. We just don't look at each other and just look at the screen that's recording us.
Hey, whatever works.
So today we are, like Yehna said, talking about a podcast episode that we were inspired by. Just getting some inspo from it. It was called Typology episode, How to Set Boundaries Without Losing Yourself, with Lysa Turkuest. And I think she has 2 or 3 books out that I actually have read.
One of them being about healthy boundaries. So that's kind of where we get a lot of our inspo.
And so, like Yehna said, Ian Cron kind of hosts it and talks her through and kind of helps her promote her book. But we found it very interesting because she is a Enneagram type 9, and boundary setting is very hard for 2s and 9s. And so we were very inspired, and it kind of aligned with what, we've been processing as well. So we wanted to kind of talk through some of the things that she said. So it's very much inspired by her. Yehna, would you like to kind of touch on the first point and get it started?
Yes. So our biggest thing that we want to discuss today is letting go of friendships and relationships that we held very close to our heart, and kind of walking through just the process that goes in our hearts and in our mind as we navigate a lot of this. And the first one really being the first stage, where we do a lot of questioning, really surrounded around doubt and feeling guilty and just what it looks like internally. So for my end, I think when it comes to the initial stages that I wrestle with is really the feeling of guilt. I think to myself, wow, why am I so sensitive? Why am I so caught up in the motion? Why is this specific thing affecting me so much? Why can't I just suck it up, be complacent with the situation, and suppress any big emotion that arises, especially if it creates tension too. I don't want that either. And kind of understand their side more, which is good because I want to understand their perspective so I don't have this bias and this bitterness. But in the process of all of that, I do find myself, I don't find myself. I completely lose myself and just ignore my own needs and what I would need, because down the line, this feeling of guilt and uncomfortability and feeling upset will slowly simmer and create a bigger and almost more darker emotion that I may not be able to contain, and it will bubble over into bitterness and aggression. So really navigating, processing it before it gets worse than it has to be is just very much the initial stage of this beginning process of letting go.
So my question is, when you create tension, how does that immediately make you feel guilty? And like, what do you think of yourself when you know that you have created that tension?
It's that feeling of, why couldn't I just be better? Or why do I know this sounds so stupid, but it's just that question of, why do I have needs?
I relate to that so much.
I don't know. I'm not trying to be humble here. I really am not. Really just like, why can't I just be satisfied with not having feelings? Why can't I just maneuver through life airheadedly? I don't know. I just don't want to feel anything.
Yeah, you're just like, why do I care this much? Why do I feel like I have needs and I need to act upon those needs?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ooh. Sorry. Got really real.
Ooh. The thing is, I feel like that's what twos and nines have the most common. It's like they hate that tension and creating that tension because we don't want to have those needs expressed or like revealed.
Yeah.
And I relate to that as well, especially when thinking about ending a friendship or getting out of a difficult relationship. I feel like when things are ending, it feels like I'm quitting. And I associate that with failure, which is something that I'm really working through. Because if I quit, it feels like I'm not good enough to begin with, or I didn't try hard enough, or it was like my lack of.
Yes. Oh, that's
And
so painful.
I know. And the thing is, maybe things ending is a beginning to something else. Maybe things ending means better for me.
Right.
But I associate that as like I wasn't able to pull through or follow through with something. So therefore, it's very difficult for me to think about ending a relationship or to move on. So something that Lysa mentioned that I feel like we're going to summarize it, but it says, or it's just a thought, I mold my world and maneuver my words and actions to not offend or disrupt their heart.
Yes.
This is hard because, like, for example, when we discuss with other people about like, oh, what should we do in this situation? Or like, we're feeling this way, but how do we bring it up? They're like, it's just so simple. Just talk to them. And that is so hard for us to even get around to thinking about getting around to, because we are constantly thinking about how the other person will feel, that we're just wired to think that way.
Right.
And so to not think about that and just straight up say what we feel is so unnatural for us. And in a sense, it's true. We do kind of mold ourselves around another person and what they're feeling and what they're going to go through based on how we approach a conversation. Do you agree, Yehna? Or
I do agree.
yeah,
I think it's kind of not to make it look bad, but it is also a part of our pride in that we can see another person's perspective so well that we think in making ourselves smaller and working our way through and integrating our desires into what they want would help them and me most. But in reality, we're just it kind of enables them and allows them to do that. And then later on we blow up and it's almost unfair on their behalf or on their perspective because they were kind of blindsided, if that makes sense. Yes, it doesn't come naturally, but it's definitely very difficult to get there because it's just we kind of move with our heart first or just our gut instinct of, okay, this person might think this way and this person would probably react this way. And unfortunately, a lot of times our assumptions are true. So I'll be honest, I'm still navigating so much of this. That's probably why I'm kind of rambling, but just thinking through how can we go against our natural instinct so that we would actually love on another person and myself well has been such a difficult question to wrestle with.
Right. And when we think about going against our instinct, we're like, well, our instinct is good. Like, what do you mean? I love always having to think about the other person. It's like and you know, you're unintentionally like, well, aren't we called to love on other people?
Right.
But because that is so the core of us, we're forgetting ourselves. Like we're forgetting that's with the sacrifice of neglecting ourselves, you know? And I think that's where we have a hard time drawing the line, is like, we don't value ourselves enough.
Right. Which leads to another quote. I'm hoping that I wrote this quote down exactly, but Lysa also says, it's not that I don't want to be clear, it's that I care so much of what the other person is feeling that it's not my job to own their feelings or manage my feelings. My response is to be kind but clear. It's their job to manage their feelings. When I heard her talk about this, I had to ask Jessie to replay it about 3 times because we want to call it us being loving and kind, but really it's our pride wanting to be there to support every ounce of another person's being. When in reality, we're not God. We can't do that. We can't control anything. We get so caught up in that we neglect how we are doing and how we process. I think, not to speak for Jessie, but at least in my perspective and how I've experienced this and how I've responded and reacted to it, is that the reason I'm so careful now that I've learned about this is that I know I resort to anger and aggression and passive aggressiveness. And I know that ultimately that doesn't serve anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And me being fake humble only leads to more sin abounding in my heart. And so it was so convicting to know that sometimes loving another person can look very cold on the outside. So just really wrestling with the idea that love is not just this one pretty package, but it looks so different depending on who we interact with and depending on where our heart is and what season I'm in. I thought that was very insightful and really a very amazing lesson that I need to be processing still.
Yeah. And kind but clear, like that's all boundaries. Again, it goes back to how can we really set up that picket fence well, so that we aren't managing other people's before our own, and that looks different for each person. Some people are great at boundaries and they're not afraid to make that very clear to another person. But for 2s and 9s like Yehna and I, even communicating that is 90% of the battle.
99.999% of the battle.
And Lysa even said this, which we had to like stare at each other and be like, oh my gosh, this is literally the quote of our life. It's, are you okay? I'm okay if you're okay, because I need you to be okay so that I can be okay. Okay?
I like it, Bruce. I'm still hearing it.
That is like truly the codependent enabler quote.
Yeah.
100%.
And there's so much in that quote in itself. It's like, I want to check up on you, but I check up on you solely because I cannot live in the tension. So I need you to not create tension so that I won't be in the tension. Because if you create tension, I'm going to be in the tension and I don't want that. So please be better and I'll be better. And so it's like this selfish, caring, not so caring motive behind it. Wow.
It makes me feel horrible.
I felt like I was stabbed in the heart because it felt so real.
Oh, yeah.
And I could pinpoint so many times in my life where I've done this and not said this exactly, but basically said this to so many people that I actually cared about.
Yeah. And thinking this was care and love.
Yeah.
When really it's just very selfish.
So selfish. Yeah. And self-neglecting.
Yeah.
So really,
and very prideful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ouch, that hurts.
That does. So I think it was so important in all of this. Of course, we don't have the answer because we've been doing some work on it and we continue to do work on it. But it was really about learning who we are in Christ before we try to and not seek approval from another person, and how we would fulfill someone else's desire because we're not God.
Yeah.
And so it's just this like resetting and breaking and throwing away pieces of things that we believed and remolding our foundation so that it is not by our own power, but through God, that we would navigate relationships. Because truly the relationships that we started and continued in our own strength has been very difficult. And a lot of them didn't work out. So navigating the part of letting go. Yeah.
Yeah. And with that being said, like then not only just letting go, but moving on and healing from it is, that also takes so much time, and people don't really talk about that at all. seeing beyond your hurt that has been done to you and trying to understand it from their perspective. As much as we can see other people's perspectives, when hurt gets involved, when personal, internal, deep hurt gets involved in our lives, I mean, we result to anger too. I'm so bitter and I cannot understand. Nothing really matters besides what has been done for me.
Yep.
And healing begins when you choose to stop thinking about what has been done to you and to also understand your worth too.
Yeah.
But also knowing, like, just really trying to see it through God's eyes. So what has that been like? Because Yehna, you kind of mentioned that you are going through that as well. You have been in a season where you've had to go through that, and myself as well, especially post-grad. What does that look like when you think of letting go and finding healing, moving forward from a difficult relationship ending or a season where someone is not in your life anymore?
This has been truly a difficult lesson. I think friendship breakups are definitely one of those things that not a lot of people talk about, especially when it comes to the pain that is involved in it. Because you're basically now having to navigate life without a person that was so much a part of your life. With that said, just going back to what Lysa Turkuest says, and I actually mentioned this in a previous episode somewhere down the line about friendship, where I talked about how coming to a decision and using my words to declare that decision is so difficult for me. And I think that's the case for a lot of 9s, 2s, and other numbers. But it's just, I feel like the moment I say it out loud, it has to be a definitive, correct answer. And of course, that's a separate lesson I'm learning. But so that's why coming to a decision that I'm trying to move on is so hard. But a little difference between a 2 and a 9 is that once I make that decision, I'm actually not very nice.
It's more like a little more clean cut for you.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And I don't mind finally being clear. Of course, getting to that, it's like 99% of the battle for me, and it could possibly never happen. LOL. Navigating the difference between kind and nice. I think we get so caught up in trying to be nice and having this front and being represented as this loving person, but actually contemplating what real love means and displaying that through kindness. And that kindness is displayed through compassion and clarity, meaning, hey, I love you and I really care about you. However, these things you have done has hurt me and I cannot neglect that. And so let's do our best to navigate past this. And of course, if we cannot, it's about, hey, sorry, my boundary stops here and I can't keep moving forward with this. And so we need to find separate paths that will allow us to grow and navigate in health. Post letting go really looks like not spiraling on the what ifs or how could I have delivered this more perfectly. It's really just leaving it up to God, saying, hey, I did my best to communicate my heart in a way that is loving and compassionate and kind. And God, I pray that you take care of the rest. So it's really trying to sit in the comfort that I am no longer in control, but God is, hoping that he would walk me through waves when I feel hit a dip, when I kind of think I'm going to spiral. So really surrendering over and over again, God, I can no longer take control of this because I'm a human being and I make mistakes. But yes.
Well put, Yehna. I have nothing to comment on that because you put it so well. Wow. Well said. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Now I'm like blanking on what I need to think about my part. I did think about this though, in that what does it look like to let go? It really, for me, I'm learning that I need to think about my needs first.
Amen.
And even just saying that out loud sounds so selfish for me.
you should see her sitting right now. She's like has her arm crossed and her legs pulled up.
I'm uncomfortable saying that. I don't believe that, but I need to. It's so crazy because I remember even after a friendship breakup, I remember the first thing that I thought of, which is so unhealthy, was like, oh my gosh, how is this friend going to do when navigating this certain thing in their life when I'm gone? What? What? Why wasn't it just, are you okay?
Lord have mercy.
Like, that's when you clearly know, yikes, Jess, you are neglecting, you've just thrown yourself out the window for this person. And not gonna lie, I mean, I feel like friendship breakups are the most painful thing.
True.
More than a relationship breakup.
I have to say amen to that.
I have to say amen to that because just the wounds that cut, it just cuts so deep because there's something about even female relationships of the depth that you share at and the amount that you pour your heart out to another person.
You live life together.
I mean, it's a huge loss. And for me, moving forward, I cannot continue to I need to understand that I can't continue to engage in relationships in the way that I usually do. So my natural instinct is to, always ask about that person's life and care about them and engage in conversation. But to think that that needs to be stopped, it's going against everything that I live for.
Right.
So
basically stopping you.
Turn off my brain and be a little bit more selfish, which even doesn't sound right to me. Even saying that, see, I'm really struggling with this because like even saying it out loud, I'm like, but no, you still have to care. And it's like, just, but it comes to a point, there's a reason why this friendship has ended and you need to let go and you need to trust that God's going to take care of that person. It's not your job, but also let's look within you. Are you okay? What? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, living in the tension and really doing your best not to fall into the unhealth of a two.
Yeah.
Trying to fulfill another person's need. And so that you are dependent on them or they are dependent on you, but really learning to re-engage your heart so that you can serve yourself and others better.
Yeah, re-engage your heart. That's basically what I wanted to say. Thanks, Yehna.
It's okay. It's because the reason why we're both struggling so much with this episode and we were excited and nervous because it's so real.
It's so real.
And we had to go through this a little more than we probably ever wanted in our life.
Yeah.
In a span of just like 5 years.
Yeah.
So
that's painful.
Please bear with us really wrestling with this idea.
Well, and I mean, let's be real, guys. I don't think it's just us. I would really want you guys to listen through, us stuttering and struggling through this. How has it been for you? Is it kind of just like a clean cut for you? One friend is in this season, one friend is in another season. Is it that simple for you? Or like, how do you respond when something ends? What are your tendencies?
How do you move on?
Please tell us because we clearly need some advice here.
Yeah. Especially from some people who are more straightforward, Yeah. How do you guys do that?
Yeah.
And even after you're straightforward, how do you navigate through the waves of emotion that sometimes do come later?
Yeah. What does it look like to heal for you? Please tell us.
It is difficult. I break into song when I'm nervous.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, there's so much more we can go on about because our brains can never stop trying to learn and navigate this emotion and the thought process and all of these conversations. So, like Jessie said, we would love your input and just how you guys are navigating it. Because honestly, that's why we are doing this, so that we as a community, even though you might not be right next to us, are learning from each other how to go through hard things.
And also not to end on a TCK note again.
Always.
But as TCKs, unfortunately, if you have moved around a lot or if people have come in and out of your life, maybe this is something that you are used to. And I thought I was used to, Yehna, maybe you are used to people coming in and out. But when you choose to commit to certain people in your life that you feel like you found value in, and vice versa, and that to continue, and for that to not work out, is it like another occurrence for you and you're just like, oh, it's just another one? Or does it cut even deeper? Because you can tell for us, it cut even deeper. And that's a whole nother TCK thing to unpack. But I am so curious because it adds a new element to this whole process of friendships and it not continuing anymore. So
I'm internally screaming.
Just had to end with that.
I love it. Thanks for cutting me deeper and making me have to think more. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Truly, you guys always are seeing the inside of our brain and how special it is. We are on Spotify, on YouTube. Please follow those and subscribe, and follow us on Instagram so you get more news or other updates and our link to our episodes. Thank you always for listening and sticking through just the wild journey that we are on, and cannot wait to continue this conversation on our next episode. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Bye.